Oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. Okay, so recently I picked up this Gary Fisher. It's a Tasajara, rigid mountain bike, about 95. Yeah, it needed a bit of work on it. It's rideable now, but I wanted to do one thing for this video. I wanted to change out the forks. So we're going to go from these rigid forks that are on there now to a suspension fork. I've just bought the cheapest new one I could find on eBay. It's a Suntour. Can't remember how much travel it was. I think it was 80mm travel. But they'll go on this bike nicely. Basically, the things you've got to look out for when you're converting a rigid like this into a suspension is firstly wheel size. So yeah, make sure you get the right wheel size. Make sure you get the right brake mounting. So these needed some ones for some mounts on the forks for cantilevers or V-brakes. These are V-brakes. You got the dropout spacing, which you need to check, and the dropout type. These are just a, I guess, regular quick release. I think it's a 9mm in the bottom, and the spacing's 100. And then as you get further up, you need to check on the size of this head tube and the headset. Now this one is a 1 1/8 inch, which is pretty standard for like these old bikes. This one's threaded, but we're going to convert to threadless at the same time. So I've got a new headset for that. And then you also obviously going to want to take into account the measurements. So a brand new fork will come massively long, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. We can cut down the length once we've worked out the size. But if you're going to buy a used fork, you need to make sure you get the right size, obviously. So you're going to want to take into account the head tube from base to top, the stack height of your headset, which will be a bit lower on a threadless, and then because we're going threadless, you want to take into account the size of your stem. So that stem's going to go on there, and we're going to take into account that size. You can leave a little bit of room for spacers, just so you can raise and lower that stem as you wish. But yeah, just make sure you get the right height there, the right length. Anything else? No, you don't think there's anything else. So just double check that when you do get the fork, if you get the fork, it's the right steerer tube diameter, it's the right length, taking into account head tube, headset and stem. Make sure you take into account the wheel size, dropouts and the brake mounting. And that should be about it. So what I'm just going to do now is just strip this one down, take the wheel out, take the brakes off, handlebars off, drop the forks out and take this headset out, and then I can put the new one in. So when it comes to the brakes, I'm just going to change the cable anyway. It's all frayed and split and the brakes are kind of weak. So I can just undo this pinch bolt, just slide the stuff off there, just do that back on, the rubber boot, take the noodle out. That is one manky cable. What is this? Oh, what is this? That is... I've not seen one of those before. Power adjuster. The brakes on this felt really sloppy, and that'll be why, because there's a spring inside here. So when I was pressing the brakes, that spring was compressing. Huh. That was a horrible experience. Anyway, just take these off. Just make sure you don't lose anything as you take them off. V-brakes. One, two. Now as we're changing the stem, I'm going to need to take the bars out of this one. So first just actually check the stem moves. So just loosen it off and just give it a bit of a wiggle just to make sure it moves. 'Cause if it if it doesn't, there we go. No, that's fine. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to loosen off the handlebars, and I'm going to have to loosen off the levers at the same time. There we go. Oh, and of course, obviously, if you've got grips, take the grips off because you're going to need those off. Okay, so with both levers loosened, and obviously remove the grips if you've got them on. This one hasn't got them on. The handlebars loosened from the quill. You can just sort of slide one side out, slide the lever off, and just let it dangle, and go the opposite way, and do the same for the other one. Just slide the lever out, and your handlebars are off. And then obviously pull your quill stem out. That's quite a nice stem. Headsets shouldn't give too much trouble. Just going to need a headset spanner to fit under there. That's the 36. That's a little loose. And we're just going to take this one off. So this bike might have actually come with cantilevers to start with, because it's got this hanger on there. V-brakes don't normally have that. In fact, I've never seen a V-brake with that. I'm just going to unwind this. Going to need the headset spanner. Where's it gone? Okay, drop those out, grab the bearings out of there at top race, keep everything together just in case you want to use it again. Now my bodge method of removing a headset is with a big screwdriver, chisel, whichever you want to use, and a big hammer. Just drop it down the tube, and you'll find the ridge of the race inside. Just give it a few sharp taps. Be careful not to sort of punch at such an angle that you're going to punch through the tube. And it comes out. And then I'll do the same for the top as well. Okay, it's a new headset. I've gone with the cheapest of the cheap just for this project, this little demonstration. It's this set right here, £6 off eBay, like dirt cheap. You can get whatever you want, obviously, spend as much as you want. This is just a cheap aluminium set. It's got actual sort of sealed bearings inside. So we've got both races which appear to be the same size. We've got the crown race, which I'm going to have to put on the forks. Just got a little spacer, and then the top. So put those to a side. What we're going to do is just press in these. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease around them first, just around the tubes, so it helps ease them in. Now one at a time. Let's go for top first. We're going to press them in. Again, you can buy fancy tools for this, or you can just get a bit of threaded rod. I think this is a M12, M16, two big washers, which are going to fit over your headset, and just carefully wind them into position. One spanner, two spanner. Just got to make sure, obviously, it's going in. Oh, that went straight in. There we go. So simple. Just press it in. As I was going to say, just make sure it goes in straight. Take it off, just wind your nut down a little bit. Bottom race over. And then wind the bottom race in as well. Again, just make sure it goes in straight. If it doesn't, just adjust your position and just press it in. So what we're going to have to do now is just put the crown race on our new forks. So these are the new forks. They look quite good actually. Just some cheap Suntour ones. I think they were for just over £30, £31 I think, delivered. We've got a bit of adjustment on there, just a bit of preload adjustment. Think about 80mm travel. Good for a little bit of just a cross country, just riding along the canals. I just dropped the crown race just on there, and I've just got, no, I need the other one. I've just got this little bit of aluminium, and that's just going to go over there, and I'm just going to knock that. I'm going to knock that on. You've got to be careful with these races, because you don't want to damage the bearing surfaces. So that's why I'm using just this aluminium collet as a bit of a buffer. Again, you can get presses for this. I'm just going to knock that on. Just a side at a time. Just until it's fully seated. Just work your way around. And that looks good. That's fully seated now. There's no damage to the race here, and we can test fit these in the bike. So with these cups installed, to make sure that steerer tube is clean, I'm just going to give it a test fit to see how tall we're going to come out. So I'm just going to slide that all the way through. There we go, push it right up in there, just so it fits. And if you want to hold it in place, there's this little cone ring that they come with, and that will just sit around there and just press in. Hopefully, there we go, that presses in. Oh, and it doesn't hold it, okay. Well, it doesn't hold it. Sometimes it holds it, sometimes it doesn't. Get your top race or your cover, that goes on there, and you see how much, or can you see how much? You can't, let's hang you up. Okay, so now you can see how much we've got left at the top. We're not going to want all of that on this bike, because all we've got left to put on now is that. That's all we've got left to put on. So what I'm going to do is just do this up. There we go. And that will just hold the forks in place there. Everything is pulled up into the forks. So we've got the steerer in. We've got this much left exposed on top. And I don't know, a good way actually might be to just cut it off straight there. What I can do as well is add a spacer. Is that the right size? There we go. Add a spacer or two just so you've got a bit of play, maybe either side. So maybe I'll put 2 of those spacers on, just so I can raise or lower it by, that's 10mm. One will go underneath, one will go on top probably, and then we're going to cut it off there. So we need to mark that round, and then we're going to put it in the vise and just cut it off. Okay, so I've got a nice score line on there now, so I can take all this back out, stick it in the vise and cut it down. Okay, it's mounted in the vise. Got the clear score line here that I can follow. Got the steerer protected with some rag, and hopefully we're just going to cut through this in a nice line and it will all be square. I doubt it very much. It'll be easy if you've got a chop saw, maybe a grinder. I don't know if a pipe cutter would cut through, but just take your time, try and follow the line, and I'm going to join you in once I've cut this off, so it saves you the screeching of the pipe. Pretty decent. Just need to file down the rough edges now, just to get up any of those burrs. And I should say, when you're cutting, make sure you cut to the underside of the line that you scribed, because you're going to want the tube to be a bit lower than the height of everything stacked on the bike. If it sits proud, you're going to need to add another spacer in there, so just try and make it a bit lower than your line. Okay, so that's all cut down now. So we need to try and install this star nut into that tube. It's going to be a little difficult. I have this Park Tools tool, and it sits over the tube like so, and you will basically screw this onto the end. So you've got your star nut screwed in, and as that sits over the end, hopefully this won't move in the vise. We should be able to knock it in. There you go, it's all the way in now. All the way in. So that should be seated down to the correct height. Just unscrew it, and it's in there. Whoop. There you go, in. I'm not aware of another way of seating these. There might be another way, but yeah, the couple of times that I've installed brand new forks, this is what I've used. It's nice and easy, and I can't for the life of me think of the code. But yeah, star nut setter, definitely useful if you're going to be doing this. So with everything in place, we can start to reassemble. So grab your forks out of the vise, make sure they're all clean. Make sure your bearings are still in there. Yep, they are, cool. Feed it up through the bottom again. Out the top, make sure it's seated. Grab your little lock washer, slide that on. Grab your top cover, slide that on. Find out where your spacers have gone. Now I'm putting a spacer on the bottom. Going to put the stem on, and then going to put the spacer on top. Ooh, Now I might need to add, I definitely need to add another spacer in there because it just sits proud. My cut isn't completely square, so I'm going to get a thin spacer. What have I got? What have I got? What have I got? You got your stack. You got your top cap. Top cap. Now you're going to want to do this up first, so it just pulls everything up. If you don't, you might have a loose headset. And then you're going to want, once that one's done up, on top, that's when you square the stem up to your wheels, which you haven't got in yet, and do these ones up on the side. Okay, looking good, looking good. Now, with that back on, you can get the handlebars back in. And with the A-head stems, you've usually got a cap that will completely come off the front, which is a bit easier. And we're going to want to put the brake levers back on, obviously. So put one side on, that fits, no bother. Put the other side on. Get your bars centered where you want them. Do them up. Now get all your levers back into position where you want them and get the grips on. I just need to dig out some grips so I can put on there. I'll put some new lock-on grips on. Both sides, of course. Okay, and that's the top end back together. I'm going to have to replace this cable, so I will put this new cable on and then join your bar down the bottom to put the brakes back on. Last piece of the puzzle, pretty much, brakes. So just going to take the caps off, and I always like to put a little bit of grease just on there, just to keep them moving. That should do it. Grab your V-brakes, slide them out, down, make sure the pins go into these holes that are on either side. And do those up. Now I've just replaced the cable on mine because it had that horrible power adjuster noodle and it had a frayed cable, so you can do the same to yours at this point if you want. Okay, so I'm actually going to go ahead and put the wheel back in now, so I obviously know where to align the brakes to. Wheel back in, battery dying. Let's just put this brake cable on and then we're about done. So you put your noodle back through, put your rubber boot back on, why won't these V-brakes work? Okay, I need to investigate this, but for yours, just make sure you do your V-brakes up to the desired tension and you're done. Just double check all the bolts, so double check all your mounting bolts here, your mounting bolts there, double check your alignment of your brake calipers, your brake pads even. Check everything still works up top and check all the bolts, make sure there's no play. Make sure there's no play in this headset or anything like that. And there you go. suspension forks, add onto your bike, your rigid bike turn into a hardtail. So this job has cost me less than £40 to do that. Oh, actually, yeah, maybe about £40 then, because you've got the stem as well. So I've had to buy new stem, new headset, and new forks. Cheapest of the cheap. It was about £40, probably about 45. So not too bad if you want a little upgrade. But yeah, hope you found this video helpful. Hope you found it useful. If you want to see more of this sort of content, then hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you did enjoy it, and I'll catch you in the next video once I've sorted out the tension on this V-brake. Just so you know, brakes work now. Good action on them. It was just that these little adjuster screws were round all the way out, so there was absolutely no tension being put on the arm. But they work nicely now. So job done. See you in the next one.